Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the AI Más Podcast, where I spelled like AI because we're here to talk about AI. I'm here interviewing people and their stories on how they're using AI positively in their lives. I want to take the jargon out of the conversation, and so I make these episodes as accessible as possible to everyone that is listening. I am your host, Andrea Karina Perez. I want to thank everybody that's been sharing this podcast and liking and subscribing on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's been so helpful, and also leaving me messages. I read through all of them and I try to respond to everything that I see. If I haven't responded, it's because I haven't seen it. So I apologize. You can just let me know in LinkedIn if you've written me and I haven't seen it. So for this episode, I want to read something that Marco wrote for me and I thought was really nice. And so this is what he said. Andrea, I love the format and the way you talk about things that might be complex for some of the viewers. I love that you took the time to explain concepts and terms. Heart emoji. Yes. Thank you, Marco. I really want to make sure that everybody's able to understand this and doesn't get confused by random tech terms out there, because we don't need that. I'm not trying to do that. So yes, I will be continuing to do asides in this episode. If you didn't see episode 2, that's what I was doing. I jump in and just explain a term here and there just for clarity in the conversation. Let's talk about today's guest. So our guest for today's episode is someone that I've known for a few years. He is the program manager now for the program that I started, Refugees Code, in Madrid. And he is a really lovely friend as well. And we were hanging out and chatting about AI and how he's been using it. And then I spoke to Jules about their concerns in their episode, and when they were mentioning that they were worried about people using AI as almost like someone to talk to, I was like, whoa, actually I just had a conversation with my friend about this, and I wanted to get my friend on here so that he can tell his story, so maybe it doesn't feel as concerning to hear about how he uses it. All right, everyone, please welcome today's guest, Martin Post. Hello there. Can I have you say your name and pronouns, please?
Sure, it's Martin, and my pronouns are he and him.
All right. Hello, Martin. So, as I told the audience already, you are my friend. So, we've been chatting about AI the last time we hung out, and you were telling me how you've been using it. And I thought it was such an interesting story. So, I wanted to share it with my audience. So, can you tell me how you've been using AI and your journey into getting there and how you got there?
Yes, yeah, sure. Yeah, AI basically has been very helpful for me in many different aspects, but one of the main uses that I give it is basically for like my existential questions, so like philosophical questions that I get from
Mhm.
time to time. And honestly, I'm very surprised like by the level of the answers that it gives me. So
Mhm.
that's why I want to keep using it in this sense, because like with the pandemic, with the COVID pandemic, I started getting deeper and deeper into like philosophical reflection and introspection to to know myself better. I started meditating and started really evaluating things in my life and trying to find the way that I could give it the direction that I truly wanted. And I started reading like different books, like for example, books by Eckhart Tolle and a few more that touch upon a specific kind of philosophy that it's not like you cannot really group it in a way, but it basically goes about the detachment of your own ego.
So here, Martin continues to talk about how his attention was captured by a philosophy he hadn't encountered before, despite his prior interest in Buddhism. He immersed himself in studying this philosophy, and its effects on brain plasticity. So to explain brain plasticity, it refers to the brain's ability to reorganize its structure and functions in response to learning, experience, and changes in the environment. This phenomenon enables the brain to adapt, recover from injuries, and form new neural connections throughout a person's life. So he immersed himself in studying this philosophy and its effects on brain plasticity, particularly its emphasis on detachment from the ego. He discovered similar fundamental principles in other philosophies like Taoism. These teachings highlight well being by fostering connections with the present and nature while relinquishing ego driven perceptions molded by upbringing and culture. This perspective aided Martin in navigating intercultural interactions with an open mindset, allowing him to value diverse viewpoints and assess actions based on their consequences rather than personal prejudices.
And it's not something that is really affecting me negatively or affecting them negatively. So, or anybody else. So I should be fine. So this has led me into developing like a specific kind of mindsets that brought me a few more new problems, let's say,
Okay.
because I started being like too analytical and in my interactions with people. Yeah. And so, for example, let's say that I like to hang my remote controls on the wall. And then my partner, I don't know, she is not very happy about that idea because she just doesn't like the way that the remote controls look on the wall. And normally, what I will try to do is to try to convince her is and like bringing her back to this like core of this remote control here is not really affecting anything. It's not affecting anybody. It's just a matter of perspective. And you're angry at it because this remote control from your perspective looks bad. This is the mindset that I developed. And of course, in the like everyday human interactions, this mindset is not very helpful sometimes. So I started like talking about this with my friends, and my friends, of course, each one of them has their own personality, their own opinions, and they would give me different answers based on their opinions. Some would be supporting me, some of them would be against what I said. So one day I said, okay, I will try to ask ChatGPT and see what it says. And actually, it has been like very, very useful and very helpful. It's been like very life changing, I would say, because I found ChatGPT to be a very impartial tool when it comes to like this kind of matters. I've been experimenting a lot with ChatGPT and basically creating scenarios or asking about specific questions that are relating to me or to my thoughts, Mhm. more or less to like get an idea of its ideological stance, if we could say.
Okay.
And I've seen that ChatGPT basically puts, in my experience, puts the well-being of people and the world and equality at its core when it comes to the answers that it gives. Yes, from the Spanish language that you would assign a gender to, to
Yeah.
a machine, to a
Yeah.
robots. So basically, based on that, I started coming to it with first with these situations and oh hey, like I spoke with my partner and she's not very happy about this, but I want to convince her that if she looks at it from another perspective, whatever, then maybe she will be okay. But ChatGPT is like reminding me to be more human, reminding me
Mm.
to empathize, reminding me to understand the different perspectives and how, even though ChatGPT agrees that it is very, very useful and very important for people to be able to develop themselves to the point that they can step aside from their egos, because I is something that I've asked it as well.
Mhm.
And it also basically is able to tell me that not everybody is at the same part of the journey as I am. And not everybody will be happy with me saying, But you need to understand that if you look from a no perspective, because one thing that I usually say is like, if all human beings died today, then who would be telling what is good and what is bad? Nobody.
Okay.
So my thought experiment that I sometimes use when I find myself in situations. I ask like, if everybody is dead, then who would tell if having the remote control on the wall is good or bad? So, like, it reminds me that not everybody will be happy when they start experiments, and that I should be a lot more understanding of the personal development stage of everybody.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So can you give a more, I guess, personal example of how it's affected your life instead of just like an example of a fictional example of the remote on the wall?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the remote on the wall is just like hypothetical. Yeah. So basically, for example, one of the things that like judging that I discuss with ChatGPT, it's not only about these very specific philosophical situations, but also to understand the perspectives of others in other senses, not only in the daily life. Like there's one thing that I still struggle to understand quite a lot, and I've gone around it a million times, and I just do not see I fail. I know there are many reasons about it, and many reasons that have led up to it have to be against certain demographic groups. Like this is something that, because for me, it's literally we're all human beings. So for me, it is something that
Can
I
you be
just
more
think,
clear about what you mean by demographic groups? Like, what do you mean
yeah.
by
And
that?
like, for example, like minorities in any country, like any country you go to, the minorities, whatever, like whoever they may be, are most
Mhm,
usually the most
mhm,
persecuted.
mhm.
And, and this is something that basically, as I said before, I just fail to understand how people can be so attached to their images of, say, seeing, I don't know, a person from a specific demographic group or like a specific race, let's say, and already attach negative connotations or positive connotations to that person. Basically, the biases. Yeah.
Mhm,
So I know that the biases, for example, are a useful tool that has been developed by evolution, let's say, for us to stay alive in like thousands of years ago to be able to make judgments quickly.
mhm.
But it's not really that necessary anymore, unless I don't, you find yourself in a place where you should not be. But basically, like people are so attached to this, and this is within their ego. This is within their perception of the world. So, like I've asked ChatGPT, leaving aside a bit this, like trying to get people to detach from their egos and to understand from the real perspective, because this may be a little bit too difficult sometimes. It was even difficult for me at the beginning, but then I feel like I'm able to do it. So I started asking ChatGPT, okay, but tell me why. Tell me why. I know that certain biases come from historical reasons, they come from colonialism, they come from power dynamics and all that. But I wanted ChatGPT to to tell me, why are people still so convinced by these things? So basically, the like it started giving me some answers, like these obvious ones, that maybe like their cultural upbringing, then their set of values, and then started going like a little bit deeper into how certain cultures are like led by disgust. Certain cultures are led by other emotions like fear, for example, and how this in-group feeling of if I am like from the majority and you are from the minority, how this in-group feeling is like fueled by the fear or it's fueled by disgust towards people in the outgroup. And it gave me this different perspective, how like this, the discrimination can go to something that is very, very, very deep and very ingrained into the people that have this kind of mindsets. So it it gave me this perspective to be able to not, I mean, to be able to be more understanding
Hmm.
and not only towards their cultural upbringing, but also towards these inner emotions that could really be the solid base of the way that they feel. So
Okay.
this for me was very eye opening,
Hmm.
and because I was just convinced that it's just some made up thoughts that people are like some are more worth it than others, just literally made up. But so I was not able to understand why people are so fixed to that. And
Hmm.
according to my conversations with
Hmm.
ChatGPT, I got to see that potentially, at least according to what it says, is this. And then I started doing some research about it. And I found like some really interesting videos. There's actually a really interesting video that I found about like it's a YouTuber that does an analysis of different parts of the world and how their cultures are guided by different emotions.
Okay.
And it really opened my eyes even more. So
So using the chat helped you like even just like dig further and then even like kind of like create your own research,
yeah, yeah,
basically.
because also, so basically, ChatGPT is somebody that, I mean, somebody. It is that you can push it to the limits without the fear of it reacting or getting angry. You can really push it to the limit, question everything it says until you get like
Hmm.
really, really interesting, deep conversations.
Mm.
And the things that it said, and it doesn't get tired. That's the other thing. Because
Right.
you
It doesn't burn out.
and it doesn't burn out because you can start a conversation like literally yesterday I started a conversation to it and today I
Hmm.
continued as if nothing had happened.
Hmm.
And of course doesn't care. You just
Yeah.
continue the conversation. And as long as you keep the session open, it keeps some certain like memory.
Hmm.
And so it's been really interesting. It's been really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that it like has led you to like curiosity. That it's been like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I never thought of that. Let me look that up. And then you find videos and then you're learning. And then like that's
Yeah.
it's a really interesting way to use it. And it's really cool. Can you tell us how you think that it has made your life better? Or has it made your life better now that you started doing this and using it
Yeah.
the way that you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. It's I would say that just to keep it very, very concise, I would say that it really has helped me in understanding different social conflicts, both personal and like in the global scale, from an impartial yet egalitarian perspective.
So, what egalitarian refers to is the belief in or advocacy for equality, particularly in social, economic, and political contexts. It emphasizes the idea that all individuals should have equal rights, opportunities, and treatment regardless of their background, status, or characteristics.
It has also helped me go deeper into my philosophical like journeys
Mhm.
whenever like I'm thinking of well, like anything that I maybe concerned about. And it's also a very practical tool, as many of us know. I mean, as you know, that I'm volunteering for a local NGO, and this means that I need to write activity reports quite often for a specific
Mm.
project. And I just throw in some keywords, and ChatGPT does the magic. And sometimes, like, I just tell it to rephrase things if it sounds too roboty.
Mhm.
So, like, I get two versions of the same thing, put them together, maybe change a few words, and I'm done. So it's been a very,
Yeah.
very, very useful tool for my.
Yeah. And I think also having access to it all the time is what makes it so great because even
Yeah,
if you had somebody that you could bounce these ideas off of all the time, like if something pops into your mind, you can't always call that person. Like you can't always be like, "Hey, something
yeah,
came to my mind. Let me talk to you about it." Da, 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 because people have lives. So, so you can't always like go to a specific person, even if you do have somebody which I mean, I know you do because I know how you are. I know that you talk philosophy with everyone, but it having that access to it all the time really does make a difference, especially now it's just
yeah,
released on Android as well. So like now you
yeah.
can have it on your phone everywhere you're going, walking down the street. I just saw a thing. Where does that come from? Like, or
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like anytime a thought pops up and I feel like, okay, this is something that I need to discuss with I just go for it.
yeah.
And now recently, I mean, since BART was released here in Europe,
Hmm.
I've opened it, but I haven't used it yet. I have
Hmm.
already asked it how it compares to ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And it says that it has like a deeper understanding of questions.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to know
You're
if
about to cheat on chat GPT.
yeah, setting up.
Leave that relationship.
No, I have them both open, and I could try like asking the same question to see what they say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but it's been very helpful, to be honest, with these things.
All right. And do you have any concerns about either how AI is working right now or where it's going in the future?
So I mean, for me, AI is really marking like another revolution, just like the introduction of agriculture, then the industrial revolution, then internet, and now AI.
Mhm.
And it is something that leads me to believe that maybe in the next few decades we will have a very different, like a very different amount of knowledge than we would have had without it. And very different, like scientific innovations that we would have had without it. So, on one hand, I'm like super hopeful. I'm very hopeful that
I'll
we're
ask you
gonna,
your hopes next, but
yeah,
you can
okay.
tell me your concerns
Yeah.
first.
But, but yeah, like on the other hand, I don't know first how much like it can be moderated to the point that somebody can use it for the wrong reasons. Because I mean, I've never tried and I don't want to try because I don't know if it's going to start any alerts or something, but I guess you can how to, I don't know, make a bomb or stuff like that. So this is
Oh,
my
yeah.
concern. Yeah, this is my concern. Uh, so I don't know how that will be moderated or regulated.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're there yet, but I think we may reach a point in which AI may be a little bit more independent
Mm,
and be able to make decisions on its own. I don't know. I mean, it already makes decisions, but based on prompts.
right.
So I don't know how a case of a specific, it was a chatbot that was, I think it was based on ChatGPT. that basically it's the person that gave it its prompt. It was to destroy the world
Oh.
and to see how it would react.
Hmm.
And this thing, this AI bot, like apparently opened a Twitter account and started like making tweets and started like kind of trying to call other AI robots to join it.
What?
So I don't know. I'll send it to you later. But
Okay, yeah, I'll link it in the show
actually, it's
notes.
Chaos GPT. So yeah, Chaos GPT. That's why it's called. Yeah.
Oh, geez. So I looked up Chaos GPT. And yeah, it's definitely scary. It basically somebody coded to override what ChatGPT already has built in, which is like anything that might harm people, it doesn't go through with. So that's normally what is set up. And then somehow somebody used it to create Chaos GPT and then was able to override that. And it did create a Twitter account and try to tweet out and try to use other bots out there. And then the other bots just kind of ignored it. And so nothing really came of it, but it's definitely scary. It's definitely a conversation to have. And it's definitely something to keep an eye on and make sure that regulations are put in place so that yeah, we don't have to disconnect all the servers when things get too scary. We'll see. I know there's a lot of people out there making sure that these regulations are put in place and that we are protected as a species and as a planet from any sort of future robotic attacks. So I support those people. I hope they continue to do this hard work. And if that's something that you are all interested in, you can let me know, and I will try to find someone that is involved in that to come and speak to us on the podcast.
And but for now, it is something that's. I mean, I believe that like the servers could just be unplugged if this ever happened.
True.
But you don't know. I mean, it is a brain that thinks a million times faster than we do, that
Mhm.
can hold a lot of information, and that can surprisingly understand human emotions very well.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's
People think they're really complex, but let me tell you, we're creatures of habit, and it's really
yeah,
easy to know what our next step is.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I mean, that's why people think that, like, our phones are listening to us and, like, that based on the ads that they get, but it's really just, like, it's the cookies. Don't let them see your cookies
yeah,
because they just already see what
and-
you already looked at, what you're already interested in, and then they just like, "Oh, they're probably gonna like this thing." We're really easy to target,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
because 'cause we're
totally.
creatures of habit, so, yeah. I mean, of course, we're complex. We're all complex, but I guess not enough
It's
for the
easy
robots.
to, yeah, easy to guess, as you said, like
Mhm.
what our behavior is going to be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Okay, so let's talk about your hopes so we don't
Yeah.
scare everyone.
So my hopes are mostly in the field of medicine,
Mm.
and this is like a more closer personal thing to me because like my sister is a biotechnology student, and she's really like into the field of genetics, and it is like she already tells me about this like very first programs and companies that are using AI and the potential that it seems to have to, I don't know, like find the right combination of genes to modify like a white cell to fight cancer, or
Mhm.
like the right formula to like degrade, I don't know, plastic. And it,
Oh, cool.
it seems to be like a super, super powerful tool that
Mhm.
also my sister uses it a lot for homework. And
Let's connect to your sister.
yeah, yeah, because sometimes she has these problems and she doesn't know how to sort them out. So she just goes to ChatGPT and like biotechnology. problems.
Yeah.
And so
I
I'm very
really want to get
hopeful
some
that,
scientists on the show, so
yes, yeah, it'll be super interesting because I'm really hopeful that in the field of medicine, in the field of optimization of renewable energies, and,
That's what I'm
and
excited about too.
it, it's going to be, I think it's going to be crazy. There's going to be a very clear before and after. And well, even in the field of social sciences, like it can help the philosophers of the present. It can help the anthropologists, the sociologists of the present
Mm.
compare and find like quick references from different authors and
Mhm.
compare easily. It is, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a great tool. Let's hope
Yeah.
we can keep it under control.
Yes. No, actually, I don't know if you know this NGO like 80,000 hours. So it is an organization that its mission is basically that 80,000 hours is the amount of hours that the average person uses in their career, in their lifetimes, like in their professional career. So the organization focuses on trying to help people devote those 80,000 hours into something that will have a positive impact in the world.
Okay.
So it does constant research into the world problematics like
Mhm.
climate change, discrimination, and nuclear war risk and stuff like that. And it makes a list of the top problems that needs to be addressed, and they are the most neglected. So if you go to the list and you check out what is the biggest problem that, like the biggest risk that they identified, and it is the most neglected, it is AI and regulation.
Mm.
So for people that are
Well,
interested, like I would suggest get into AI regulation. It is one of the fields of the future.
mhm.
And it is very, very important that governments and entities are able to keep AI under control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good advice. So I hope someone out there is listening and is thinking about what to
Yeah.
do with their career and can get into that. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
Martin. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you've been using AI. And it was great to see you.
Okay. Very welcome. And thank you for inviting me to, I think it's like second or third episode of your podcast.
Yeah, you'll be episode 3.
Okay. Yes. Very happy to be with you in this moment.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the AI Más Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Again, leave me any comments, whether on LinkedIn or on YouTube, or leave me reviews on Apple Podcasts, and I will read them all. So again, thank you for liking and sharing as well. And for those that support me on Buy Me a Coffee, I really appreciate it. I'm your host, Andrea Ocarina Perez. Thank you for listening. Until next time, bye.